Students, we were learning the comparative study of the respiratory organ. Now, why do we learn the comparative study? Because we want to understand the relationship between the animal. Which type of relationship? Phylogenetic relationship means we are trying to understand how the animals have been evolved one after another. So for that reason, we started from the lower vertebrate. Now we had almost started with the vertebrate, that is the phylum Chordata. We have learned the example of one class of Chordata. Which class we have studied? We have studied about the Pisces, and in that fish we have learned about the bony fish into the last lecture. So now again, same phylum, that is the chordata. We will be learning another example, that is the frog. So let us discuss in general about the frog. Most of you know about the frog, that it belongs to the vertebrate, or you can say the chordata, and it belongs to the class amphibians. Now amphibians, we all know very well, have the three orders: Urodela, Apoda, and Eura. So Urodela is the tailed amphibians. Example: lizard, salamander. All they belongs to that particular order. And one order, Apoda, are vermiform. That means septinate. You can say they are just look like the snake, but actually they're not snake. They look like worms, you can say. And the anura. Anura means tailless. Urodela means tailed. So on the basis of presence or absence of tail, the amphibians are classified as anuras and urodela. So this particular class, that is the amphibian, this particular example frog, we are learning belongs to the order Anura. Now, generally we know about the frog that they have the grasping type of tongue, long tongue. So because of that, they can have a various type of diet. They can take the herbivorous diet. Herbivorous means they can take the parts of plants and plant other product. Then omnivorous, planktivorous. Planktivorous means depends on the planktons. Planktons, all type of plankton, zooplankton, phytoplankton. So they can take the planktons also. Now we will talk a little about fertilization. Why we are discussing fertilization under the heading respiration? Because the thing is, we are trying to touch or learn the metamorphosis or the life cycle of the frog. So as far as fertilization is the external fertilization. External means the frog, male frog will spread or release its gametes into the water, and the female one side will release its ovum. Ovum, that means the egg, and outside, that means into the medium, into the water, the fertilization, or you can say the fusion of gamete is going to occur, and the egg will fertilize outside the body. And then after, once the eggs are fertilized, their development start. Their development I have added for the purpose, because of their various life parts, they are having the different type of the habitats. That's why I have added this point. Then complete metamorphosis, they shows. Complete metamorphosis means, I have explained you many times, metamorphosis means the developmental changes in a life of an organism. I repeat, metamorphosis means the developmental changes in the life of organism. So metamorphosis: complete, incomplete, and direct development. Three type of metamorphosis we have already learned, but complete metamorphosis, once again I will tell you, complete metamorphosis means animals show the various stages of life, like egg, larva. In the case of the frog, they will be having the tadpole. Now tadpole also, they have the three different stages. Normal tadpole, which resembles same to same fish, and this tadpole, till tadpole, the frog will be lying into the water. That means the aquatic lifestyle. Then tadpole will develop two legs, thereafter four legs, then the tail regression. Now you will be thinking, ma'am, these are neurons, then why do they possess the tail? So at the time of the development, when they overcome or they pass the tadpole stage, their tail degenerates. So that particular time, they just come on the land. They again don't go back to the water to spend the aquatic life. The adults stay on the only for laying egg purpose. They are going into the water. Then whatever their life, remaining life, means the life after the tadpole stage, they spend on the land. And now see aquatic tadpole. Point to be noted, last lecture when we were talking about respiration in fish, I told that until and unless the organism do not possess the special respiratory surface, that is gills, the organism cannot stay into the water, right? You all remember last lecture I told you that the most prime condition for the organism to stay inside the water is the gills, and some accessory organs also we all have learned. So that means the tadpole must possess the gills. Yes. So this tadpole, that means frog, in their initial, or you can say the developmental stage, metamorphotic stage, they possess the gills, but they degenerate their tail, they degenerate their gills also. In the further life stage, they don't require the gills. So these gills are helping the tadpole. So definitely respiratory mechanism will be different into the frog as well as the tadpole. So we are going to discuss only and only about the frog, because it is having a very interesting and very different type of the respiratory mechanism. So let us discuss about the respiratory mechanism into the frog. Most of the students, they do this mistake. They write that frog have the gills as the respiratory surface. This is absolutely wrong. Yes, frog do possess the gills, but only and only into the tadpole stage. In their further lives, means in their adulthood, they do not possess the gills. Their gills degenerates when they come out of the tadpole stage. Understood? So let us discuss about the respiratory surfaces. But before that, as usual, I am going to explain what are the characteristics of the respiratory surface. The respiratory surface must be thin, it must be permeable to the oxygen, it means gases, it must be permeable to the gases, it must be moist, and it must be thin. So first respiratory surface we are going to learn is the skin. So now skin, they have uh, as a respiratory surface. That means their skin is moist. Their skin must be what? Highly vascular. So you will find that their respiratory surface, which they are using to the gaseous exchange. So this is gaseous exchange as a skin. So this skin is moist. So if an animal wants to keep the skin moist, what they must possess? They must possess the glands which are producing the moisture. So for that reason, they have the specialized gland. Now, what other quality the skin must possess? It must be thin. So skin is thin, Skin is permeable to water, then it is highly vascular, means it has large network of the blood vessels. Now oxygen get dissolved into the film of water covering the skin and absorbed by the blood capillaries having the low concentration of oxygen. So what is going to be happen that the skin will take the oxygen. Now see, the skin is supplemented with the dissolved, means the skin can take the oxygen molecules from the water. That means the dissolved oxygen can be taken. So when the frog, now you might be thinking that they are amphibians, so for some part of their life they need to go back to the water. So like their reproduction occurs into the water. So when they go to the water, so that particular time this skin will help them to respire there. Not only this, when they will go, where they will go, when they will go for the hibernation. Now we know hibernation and estivation very well. These are the long sleeps when the animal rely on the low metabolic rate and do not move, means it's a long sleep in short, you can say. So that particular time also they are going to respire with the help of skin. Now what is the second and the main second respiratory organ is the lungs. But you need to remember that the lung into the means you can say the lower organism, that means the amphibians, they will not be very developed. Actually, when we talk about the phylogeny of vertebrate lungs, so it shows the progressive increase in the surface area of respiratory epithelium, specialized in the ventilation mechanism and efficient circulation. That means as we will go into the higher organism, you will find more and more and more development of any type of organ, not only lungs. You will go to the higher vertebrate, you will find that the organism is more and more complex. Why organism is becoming more complex? Because their organs are becoming more and more complex. So for that particular reason, the organism is you will go now vertebrate. First animal frog we are learning, that means the class amphibian we are learning, and there we found the lungs. So there are certain fishes, they also possess the lungs. So their lungs will be very simple. So as compared to the lung bearing fish, you will find they have little more complex. Fish lung is called as a swim bladder. It's just outgrowth of the stomach. Now here the lungs will be continuation of the pharynx. Now pharynx we know, we have learned into the fish what is the pharynx. So what is going to be happen that the lung will be uh, continuation with the pharynx, and thereafter you will find that lung is not well modified. Now why do they require lungs? They have skin, and that is very efficient respiratory surface. That means it can do very well the cutaneous respiration. So when we all know that the frog are very active animal, so when their oxygen demand is more, that particular time only they will do the pulmonary respiration. That means respiration with the help of the lungs. Now why do they require more oxygen? When their metabolic activity is more, that means they are catching the prey and they are jumping, or they are eating. So that particular time the demand of oxygen is more. So to cope up with the oxygen need, more oxygen need, they will respire with the lung. So when we talk about the lung, you can see it is present into the pair. Now it is present into the anterior region of the coelom on the dorsolateral side of the heart. You can see the its location I have marked in the diagram. Now, little bit about the lung. Uh, they are pair of thin walled sac which is connected to the mouth through an opening. The opening is called as glottis. Glottis is present in human also. Now see why this glottis is present. Now in the case of human, we all know very well that when we eat or when we drink, so our this digestive system tract and this respiratory tract, it has the same opening, that is the mouth. So we can respire from mouth also. Whenever we get the severe nasal blockage, we respire from mouth only, right? So the opening is same. So to prevent anything to go inside the lung, there is a cap-like structure, and that cap-like structure is called as the glottis. So the same glottis is present in the case of um, frog also. The point to be remembered, like we, they will not have the trachea. Okay, so they do not possess trachea. Their lungs are very delicate, thin-walled, elastic sac-like structure. Lungs are covered with the visceral peritoneum. The inner means they have peritoneum means the outer covering, the outer membrane. The inner surface of lung when we talk about, so inner surface is thrown into the large number of irregular and radially arranged folds. Folds are always present into the lungs, but they don't have the highly complicated alveolar structure as we possess. Only what they will have the radially arranged fold. Now space between two consecutive fold of inner surface of the lung form and the alveolus. This space what you can see. So they don't have special alveolar like we all have. This space only will produce the alveolus. Alveolus means the space to keep the air. The alveoli greatly increase the inner respiratory surface of the lungs, and they are richly supplied with the blood vessel. Now, if blood will not come, how the blood will get oxygenated? So, this alveoli region, it will possess more and more blood vessels. Now, as far as muscles is concerned, so we know that muscle will be highly elastic. So, muscle fiber, whatever present into the wall of lungs, it will help the lungs to contract and expand. So but it will not have that much of the elasticity as we do have, because it is just a supplementary organ. The main respiratory organ or mostly on which the frog rely is this, that is lining of the mouth. Lining of the mouth, as I told you, it is the main or the prime most respiration which frog depends on. These two are the supplementary. So let us discuss about the lining of mouth, which is called as the buccopharangeal membrane also. So buccopharangeal membrane, now it is respiratory surface, so definitely it is going to be highly vascular. Now when the frog is resting, so that particular time they will predominate breathing, and that is known as the buccopharangeal respiration. Now see, they are resting means they are not doing any activity, so that particular time they can respire with this. Now when they are doing the buccopharangeal type of respiration, so what is going to be happen, how, what is the mechanism of the respiration? They will take the air from the buccopharyngeal cavity, and that particular time whatever oxygen is present, so that oxygen will dissolve into the buccopharyngeal cavity mucus, and from the mucus it will directly go into the blood, and when the floor of the buccopharyngeal cavity is open, carbon dioxide will be expelled out. So when it is closed, oxygen will go inside. Now the glottis will remain close this particular time. Why? Because when they are respiring from the buccopharyngeal cavity, they will not involve the lungs. So lungs will rest at that particular time. This is the main form of breathing while at rest, because the lungs are poorly developed in the case of frog. Now we will learn the mechanism of breathing. This is about the respiratory surface. Now we will talk about the cutaneous respiration first. Cutaneous respiration means the first type, that is the respiration with the help of moist skin. Now, as I told you that they need to go to the water sometimes, and when they are in water, they lack the gills. They do not have the gills. So, how will they respire? So, when they are in water, so predominantly they will be respiring with the help of skin. So, their skin, as I told you, is highly vascular, thin, and permeable to the dissolved oxygen. So, and they have the hemoglobin as the respiratory pigment, and this pigment enhances the absorption of the oxygen. Respiration by skin is a continuous process. Means it is not like that. It, as I told you, that it is the predominant in the case of the water, but it is the continuous process. Means they are respiring. They are on the land that time also continuously, slowly, slowly. Skin respiration is continuous throughout. When the frog is out of the water, mucus gland in the skin keeps the frog moist. When they are in water, that time they don't require the extra moisture on the skin. So that particular time, they are getting moisture from the water. But when they are coming outside, so what happens? Mucus gland will help them. Then, when the skin is moist, it helps to absorb the dissolved oxygen from the gas, and this cutaneous respiration is helping the amphibian life of the frog. The next type of respiration, that is the buccopharangeal respiration, which is the predominant or the most important when the frog is on land. So that particular time, what happened? Now we all know that that particular time the muscles of the buccal cavity as well as the higher apparatus which is present on the floor of buccal cavity, they will aids into the air being drawn in as well as expel out. When we talk about the buccal cavity, so its buccal cavity have two pair of muscles. Of one pair of the sternocleidomastoid muscle, and the other pair is known as the pterygoid muscle. I repeat, this buccal cavity of the frog, which possesses this buccopharengeal type of respiration. So this particular cavity will have the two pair of muscles. One pair is called as the sternocleidomastoid muscle, and other pair of the muscle will be called as the pterygoid muscles. Now, what is the role? Why I am focusing so much on this muscle? Because these muscles, these are attached to the under surface and the upper surface of the hyoid apparatus respectively. Now, when we talk about the closing and opening of the buccal cavity, so these muscles only helps for the closing as well as the opening of the buccal cavity. Now, when we talk about the sternocleidomastoid muscle, so this sternocleidomastoid muscle will contract and hyoid apparatus and the floor of the buccal cavity will close, and it come through the external nerves into the buccal cavity. When they are closing, so that particular time the jaws will close the external layer. Now what is going to be happen when everything is closed? So the air will be trapped into the mouth. Let us discuss once again what is happening. Learn again. First, what is happening? The sternocleidomastoid muscles will contract. Now, when the sternocleidomastoid muscles will contract, that particular time, hyoid apparatus and floor of buccal cavity, both will be lowered. Okay. So when this will lowered, what is going to be happen? The air will come inside. Now, from where the air will come? Air will come from the nasal cavity or the nares. Now air will come from the nares to where? To the buccal cavity. As the air come inside, so that particular time jaws are tightening, and when the jaws are tightening, so automatically external layers will close. Are you getting it? Just imagine what is happening. Stenohyal muscles, where the stenohyal muscle present, we know that the stenohyal muscles are present under the buccal cavity. So these stenohyal muscles will contract, hyoid apparatus and the floor of buccal cavity will be lowered. First, what is happening? Stenohyal muscles will contract. And when these stenohyal muscles will contract, that particular time, hyoid apparatus and floor of buccal cavity will be lowered. And when this is happening, the air will come. From where it will come? It will come from the external layers. Now, when the air is inside, that particular time, the jaws will be tightening up and this will close. When the jaws are tightened up, you imagine when both the jaws, the animal is closing. So that particular time, the external layer will also close. All this will lock up the air into the mouth. So this air which is trapped inside the mouth will give pressure on the glottis. So what will happen? The glottis will open, and thereafter this another type of muscle. Which type of muscle we have learned? We have learned about the pterohyals muscle. So we know that the muscles contract and relax in the sequence, in the cascade form. So now these muscles have done their job. Now second type of muscles, that is the pterohyals. Now this pterohyals muscle will contract. Now when the pterohyal muscles will contract, hyoid and buccal cavity will be raised. Now see, when the stenohyal muscles were contracting, hyoid apparatus as well as buccal cavity was lowered. But now when the pterohyal muscle contract, exactly opposite is happening. That means when the pterohyal muscles are contracting, that particular time the hyoid apparatus as well as buccal cavity, they are opening or they are raised. So what will happen? The air which is pushed down to the glottis, it will go to the lungs. So this particular process is called as the inspiration, that means the inhalation. So what is happening in the sequence? In short, first stenohyal muscle is contracting, which will lower the buccal cavity as well as the hyoid apparatus. So air comes in. Understood? When the air is inside the mouth, jaws will close. So this air will put the pressure on the glottis. When the glottis is pressurized, so that particular time, this pterohyal muscles will contract, and what will happen? The buccal floor of buccal cavity or hyoid apparatus, both things will be raised, and that particular time the air will drone inside the lungs. Now, drawing of air inside the lung is called as the inhalation or the inspiration. Now, what will happen at the time of expiration then? During the expiration, carbon dioxide from the lungs will be expelled out of the body. Now, when we talk about the pulmonary respiration, as I told you, it is not the primary process. Now, with the what happened in the case of the expiration time, that means carbon dioxide which is present into the lungs, that will be expelled out of the body with the external layer closed. Now see, when external layers closed, that means stenohyal muscles will contract, floor, and everything will get reversed. Understood? When the external layers are open, that time the muscles, stenohyal muscles were relaxed. So now when the external layers will be closed, what is going to be happen? Stenohyal muscles will contract, then floor of buccal cavity will be raised, and then air will be forced out. So the lungs do not inflate and collapse. Like our lungs, even we can feel the lungs are inflating and collapsing, but they do not collapse by their own because they are poorly developed as compared to the other vertebrates. So in short, the main respiration in the case of the Buccopharangeal cavity, we have seen that simply they are taking the air inside the buccal cavity by closing their mouth, and this particular air they are means they are having the buccopharangeal lining or mouth lining, which is supplemented with the mucus, and from the mucus directly this dissolved oxygen it mixes into the blood. Right now, then when we talk about the pulmonary respiration, in the case of the pulmonary respiration, we have learned that the first thing which the animal requires is the nostril and the buccal cavity. So what happens, the buccal cavity as well as the hyoid apparatus which is present on the floor of buccal cavity, it will helps to take the air inside and out. Then we have learned the pulmonary mechanism, in that we have learned that this buccal cavity have the two pair of muscle. This is called as the sternocleidomastoid muscles and the pterygoid muscles. These muscles are helping to take for the inspiration and the expiration, but that much contraction and the expansion of the lungs is not possible. Why it's not possible? Because it is not highly developed. So this is all about the respiration into the frog, but if you have any doubt, definitely you can ask me. So for this note, for this particular lecture, I will stop now.